Welcome to Test 3 of the General Math 2019-20 tests. We'll be going over the last 12 problems, starting from question 39. In this question, the key things that you need to note down are there are 9 runners, and then medals are given to first, second, and third place. So they're asking in how many ways the medals can be awarded, which basically means how many ways can the runners be organized into first, second, and third place. Now, we don't know anything else about the runners, so we know each of them are equally likely to get first, second, and third place, which means all 9 runners are eligible for first place. Out of those 9, only one will be chosen. For second place, well, if one of them is already chosen for first place, that means there are 8 more runners that can be chosen for second place. Same logic applies, and you have 7 more runners chosen for third place. Now, this is a permutation problem if you haven't recognized already, because the order of the placing matters. So if you don't understand that concept that well, then check out the video that I've linked at the top right. That will go more in detail about permutations and combinations. So now that we know there can be 9 runners for first place, 8 for second, and 7 for third place, when you multiply them out, then you get 504, and that's answer choice B. So 39 is answer choice B because there are 504 ways that medals can be given to first, second, and third place finishers. And that is question 39 of General Math Test 3. Now we're on to question 40 of General Math Test 3 of the 2019-20 cycle. So question 40, the key details here is that there are 2 shirts being bought for $12 each. That would make it $24 spent on shirts. And then a skirt for $18, that's $18 for that, and a hair bow for $5. So that means you have $24 plus $18 plus $5, that's going to be $47. Right. So now with this $47, it's asking us what's the total bill if the tax rate is 9%. So if the tax rate is 9%, you can write that as 0.09 times 40, and then you'd get the amount that you're paying for tax, and then you'd add 47 to that. That's pretty much the same as if you take 47 and you multiply that by 1.09. Okay? And so when you multiply that out, you should get 51.23. And that would be the total cost that Anna would pay after tax. That's question 40 of General Math Test 3. Welcome to General Math Test 3, question 41. Question 41 talks about probability, and it's about getting a sum of 9 when you roll a pair of die. And it's asking for this in ratio form. So the probability of rolling a pair of die and getting a sum of 9. So each die has the numbers 1 through 6, and to get a sum of 9, you'd have to have a minimum of a roll of 3. So you'd have to have 3 and 6, 4 and 5, 5 and 4, or 6 and 3. So there are 4 possible rolls, pairs of rolls, that will get you a sum of 9. Now the total number of rolls possible, well, each number on one die, you can have 6 other numbers on the second die. What I'm trying to say is there are 6 possible rolls on the first die, and then 6 on the second die, and if you multiply, you get a total of 36 different rolls. 36 different sums, pretty much. So of those, you need it's asking us for the probability of rolling a pair of die and getting a sum of 9 in ratio form. So 4 of these, so 4 out of 36 rolls gets you a sum of 9, and that's equal to 1/9. So in ratio form, that would be 1 to 9. And that's answer choice E. So question 41 is E. This is a probability question. Welcome to General Math Test 3 of 2019-20. We'll be going over question 42. Question 42 is asking for the discriminant of the quadratic equation. So first we should organize it into standard form. So if you subtract 7x and you subtract 8, you get 2x squared minus 7x minus 8 equals 0. Now the discriminant comes in the quadratic formula. So you have the quadratic formula is b squared plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4. Sorry, I wrote that wrong. It's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. And all of that is over 2 times a. So in here, the leading coefficient of the x squared term is a. The coefficient of the x term is b. And the constant would be c. So if you plug these numbers into this quadratic equation, you can solve for the roots. It's asking for the discriminant. So the discriminant is what I've highlighted in red. That is known as the discriminant. You don't worry about the square root. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So we can just plug in our variables. We can plug in a, b, c, and we get negative 7 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 8. And that's going to be equal to 49 minus 8 times negative 8. And that's equal to 49 plus 64. That's going to be equal to 113. And so your discriminant b squared minus 4ac equals 113. That is answer choice B. So 42 is answer choice B. Welcome to General Math Test 3 of the 2019-20 cycle. We'll be going over question 43. So 43 is asking for the sum of the coordinates of the midpoints between the points that are given. So the midpoint formula is it's pretty much average. You take the average of the x coordinates and then the average of the y coordinates. So it's going to be negative 19 plus negative 13 over 2. That would give you your x coordinate, and your y coordinate would be 7 plus negative 21 over 2. Which means your x coordinate would be, because plus and minus would be negative, so it would be subtraction. Your x coordinate would be negative 32 divided by 2. And your y coordinate would be 7 minus 21, that's negative 14 over 2. Right? And then you can simplify this further. Your coordinate is going to be equal to negative 16 comma negative 7. And it's asking for the sum of those coordinates. So negative 16 plus negative 7, and that's going to be equal to negative 23, and that's answer choice B. So 43 is B. Welcome to question 44 of General Math Test 3 2019-2020. Question 44. What is the volume of the rectangular prism whose faces have an area of 6 units, 15, and 10 units squared? So it's asking for the volume of the rectangular prism. It's telling us the value of those faces. So this is a rectangular prism, pretty much. I'm not going, from one perspective, you can see about 3 sides. It's giving us the areas of the faces, and as you can see, this face is has a different area than this face, which has a different area as compared to this front face. So all 3 of them have different areas, and it's saying the faces of those rectangular prisms have areas of 6 units, 15 units, and 10 units. So what this means is because those are the faces, we can derive the side lengths, and we can derive the volume from those units. So if you look at the 15 units and 10 units, I'll color code each of these areas. So that's the blue one. 15 units would be the purple one, and 10 units can be the red one. So what does this show? You should, if you want to find out a side length, it's beneficial to find the greatest common factor between any two sides. So between the purple side, which is 15 units squared, and then the red side, which is 10 units squared, what's the greatest common factor? It's going to be 5. And this is because you can take the greatest common factor of the areas, and area is like base times height. So for this face, that would be the base and this would be the height. And then for this face, this would be the base and that would be the height. So both of those faces share one side length. And because multiplication, if you find the greatest common factor, then you can find the other corresponding side lengths. And then using those side lengths, you can find the volume. So we know this is 15 units and this side length is 5 units. So 15 times 3 is 5. It would mean this base in that respective face is going to be three units, right? And then this face is 10 units squared. That's the area, which means this base has to be 2. And now we have the length, width, and depth of this rectangular prism. And you can confirm that this front face is 6 units squared, 3 times 2. So now we have the length, the width, and then the depth of the rectangular prism. So the volume would just be 3 times 2 times 5, which is going to be 6 times 5, and that's equal to 30. So question 44 is C. It's 30 units. Now we're on to question 45 of General Math Test 3, 2019-2020. Question 45 has to do with exponents. It would be beneficial to know your exponent rules. I will link the General Math Test 1 in the top right. You can look over that, and in General Math Test 1, I go really in depth with each of the rules that are necessary, exponent rules. And then you can also check out the exponent rules playlist, and that will give you some practice problems and extra help if you are struggling in this area. So 45 gives us this, it's multiplication and it has fractions, and it's actually pretty easy. So this is 4a squared, and then a to the 5th. We can use our subtraction rule, and we can see that the denominator is going to have a to the 3rd in it. Then b to the negative 4th and b squared. So negative 4th would bring it down. This would be b to the 6th power. So from the numerator, your a and b values have gone. In this second part, you have 12 divided by 3. That's going to be equal to 4. Over here, you have a squared and b cubed. But then in the denominator, you have all of this to the negative 2nd power. So let me rewrite what we have. We have 4 times a squared b cubed. All of that is over 3a cubed b to the 6th power. And this a squared b to the negative 2nd power, you have to flip that. So it's going to be a squared b to the 2nd power. And you can distribute the exponent, and you have a to the 4th b squared. And then that's equal to, when you add the exponents in the top, you have 4a to the 6th b to the 5th over 3a cubed b to the 6th. And now you can just use your exponent rules. When you're dividing exponents, you subtract them, and you're left with 4a cubed over 3b. And oh yeah, and then I forgot one thing, this 4. So in each of the steps I forgot this. So you have 4 times over here. And so that's going to be 4 times 4a cubed divided by 3b. That's going to be 4 times 4 is 16. 16a cubed over 3b. So just make sure that you remember and you don't like make a mistake like I did. You remember everything you simplified. And that's answer choice A. So 45 is answer choice A. Welcome to General Math Test 3, 2019-2020. We will move on to question 46. 46 is asking for the value of x. This is a right triangle. And you know one of the angles is 45. This means that the other angle is also 45 degrees. This would make it a 45, 45, 90 triangle. This is a special right triangle. I'll link a video in the top right now where I go more in depth about 45, 45, 90 triangles and 30, 60, 90 triangles. But I'm just going to assume that you've either watched that video or you know how a 45, 45, 90 triangle operates. Basically, the two legs, which is not the hypotenuse. The legs are the legs intersect to form a right angle. They have the value of n, and then the hypotenuse is n root 2, and that's the ratio it goes by. And so we have the hypotenuse is 14, and that's going to be equal to n root 2. So then you divide by root 2 to isolate and solve for n, and you have n equals x on the leg. So by solving for n, you'll find x centimeters. So 14 divided by root 2, you almost always have to rationalize because you're not supposed to leave a radical in the denominator. So you have 14 over root 2 is equal to n. How you rationalize it, this type of rationalization, just multiply by whatever like the radical is over itself. So like any number over itself is equal to 1. And so in that same way, if you have like root 2 divided by root 2, that's 1. But if you multiply by root 2 over root 2, then you can rationalize the denominator and make sure that there's no radical in the denominator. So you have 14 root 2 over root 2 times root 2, which is root 2 squared. That's equal to 2. And so by simplifying, you get 7 root 2 as your answer. And that is going to be answer choice C. 46 is C. Welcome to question 47 of General Math Test 3, 2019-2020. 47 is asking for the domain of the graph. It gives us the graph. So the domain is all the x values, all the possible x values of a function or like a graph. So in this graph, what are all the possible x values? Well, you start at -3 and you end at +2. Those are all the possible, anything in between that domain is going to be your x values. Now, one special thing that you see in this graph is you see like a white circle. So it is symbolizing an empty space there. So at the point -3, nothing exists. It's just saying from it's like an open circle, which means that at -3, this graph doesn't exist, but anything be like greater than -3 that exists, and that's what it's trying to symbolize. And then the same over here. So at the point x equals 2, there is no y coordinate, it doesn't exist. But like at 1.999, an x coordinate a y coordinate exists. And so how do you symbolize that? Well, if something is like greater than -3, right? Then that symbolizes everything over here. So the x value has to be, I drew that wrong. The x value has to be greater than -3. Over here, the x value has to be less than 2. And so if you kind of combine those, you have negative 3 is less than x, which is less than 2. And this is how you write the domain of a graph. And that matches answer choice E. Now, say these circles were filled in. This is not what the question is asking. But let's just say they were filled in. Then you would use the less than or equal to operators. Because at the point negative 3, at the x value of negative 3, the y value is going to be 3. And at the x value of 2, the y value is going to be 3. So that point does exist when you fill in the circle. And then if the graph was filled in, then the domain would be negative 3 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 2, and that would be answer choice D. But because it's not filled in and it's empty, you have to go with answer choice E. And so 47 is E. So now we're on to question 48 of General Math Test 3, 2019-2020. This question would classify as a system of equations because we know that they're pigs and chickens. It might not look like a system of equations, but I'll walk through and tell you why it is. So the number of legs in her like the number of the total sum of the legs in her animals is 14 more than twice the number of heads. How many pigs does Francine have? This might seem like a really hard problem to solve, but let me draw the anatomy of a pig. So you have the head, and then you have the body, and then you have 4 legs. Here's your pig. Your pig has 4 legs and 1 head. So 1 head and 4 legs. You can write that as 1h and 4l is equal to a pig. Now a chicken has 1 head, and I don't know how to draw a chicken, but I know it has 2 legs. And I guess those are its wings. So it has 1 head and 2 legs. So 1h plus, well, not plus, but 1h and 2l is equal to a chicken. Now, do you kind of see where I'm going? So basically what I'm saying is she knows the number of, well, I mean, she kind of knows the number of heads and legs that, based on the animals that she has. So, how would we write this? So Francine observes that the number of legs in her animals is 14 more, so plus 14, then twice the number of heads. 2 times h plus 14 equals the number of legs. So we can write out like a system of equations. Sort of. So 4 times the number of pigs plus 2 times the number of chicken is equal to L, the number of legs. Why? Because for every pig there are 4 legs, and for every chicken there are 2 legs. So total number of legs can be given by that. The number of heads is equal to the number of pigs plus the number of chicken, because each of those animals only has 1 head. And using these two, it's asking us for how many pigs does Francine have. So let's solve like 4 pigs. And the best way to do that, well, we have h and we have l, and we have h over here and l over here. Why don't we just plug it in? So by plugging it in, what we get is, so it's 2h plus 14. So it's going to be 2 times h goes in p plus c. 2 times p plus c plus 14 equals L. L is what? L is 4p plus 2c. Okay? So when you distribute the 2, you get 2p plus 2c equals 14. Well, sorry, plus 14 equals 4p plus 2c. You can subtract 2c on both sides, and you can subtract 2p on both sides. And you get left with 14 equals 2p. Divide by 2, 7 equals p. The number of pigs is 7, 48 is D. And then if you wanted to find the number of chicken, you'd plug that into any equation that has chicken in it. This is the best one. Well, actually, it would be a bit harder. You can't just plug it in and be done with it. You'd have to like solve for h using pretty much the same method. Like now you know that 7 equals p. The Then you can kind of like work from there. You can plug in you can plug in 7 in any of the places where p exists, and then you solve for one variable, and then you plug that in and you solve for the other variable. But 48 is answer choice D. General Math Test 3, 2019-20. We're on question 49. If A is equal to 2 root 250 and B is equal to 3 root 640, in simplified radical form, what is the value of A minus B? So why don't we first simplify the radicals? For A is equal to 2 times the square root of 250. 250 can be written as 25 times 10. Because you're multiplying, and this is a radical, you can take the square root of one of the terms. So it's the square root of 25 is 5. So on the outside, you have 5 root 10 times 2. A is equal to 10 times the square root of 10. Now B, on the other hand, is equal to 3 root 640, and 640 is 64 times 10. Using the same reasoning as before, you can take the square root of 64, which is 8. So then you have 3 times 8 root 10, which is equal to 24 square root 10. It's asking for A minus B. So you have 10 root 10 minus 24 root 10. And you can subtract this because this is the same, and it's pretty much like the distributive property. So I'll explain it in two ways. The first one would be if you had like 3 times x minus 4 times x, right? Or if you had 10x minus 24x, you could combine because they're like terms, because like this value is the same. And so that would make it negative 14x. So what if I told you x equals root 10? Then you'd plug that in and you get negative 14 root 10. That's your answer. It's answer choice C. And the reason that works, the reason you can combine like terms is because of the distributive property. And so if you had 10 times the square root of 10 minus 24 times the square root of 10, and this is also the reason why solving by grouping works for quadratic like equations. You could do 10 minus 24 times the square root of 10. It's the reverse distributive property. You combine you combine the coefficients when like the other component is the same. So because root 10 and root 10 are the same, you can combine these coefficients. And so when you combine it, you get you get this, and that's equal to negative 14 times the square root of 10. You get your answer choice C again. And so because of that, you can just subtract these two. You get 10 minus 24, that's negative 14 root 10. Yet again, you get answer choice C. So 49 is answer choice C. Let's move on to question 50 of General Math Test 3, 2019-20. This is a geometry problem. It involves a pentagon and a square that share a side, and it's asking for angle DCE. So let me draw that angle, right? DCE would mean C to E would be connected by a line. If the drawing was accurate, you'd know that this angle is very, very small. I don't know if TMSA guarantees that the drawing is accurate. Don't go by it. What you do know is that the square, all four sides are equal, therefore all four angles are equal in length, are equal in degree, and a square has four right angles. Now the pentagon, same thing. All five sides are of equal length, meaning all five of them have like equal angle measures. So the total number of the total, like the sum of all the internal angles in a polygon is given by the formula 180 times n minus 2. And then if it's a like regular polygon, or if all of the side lengths are of equal length, then you can divide that by the number of side lengths, and then you get your angle measure for each side length. And in this case, you can divide by n to find the equal angle measure. So you just plug in. N is the number of sides. You have a pentagon that's 5 sides. 180 times 5 minus 2 is 3. 180 times 3 over 5. So 180 times 3 is going to be 540. Divide that by 5 and you get 108 is each individual angle measure. So each individual angle measure is 108 degrees. So now what do we do from here, right? We know this is a 108 degrees, and we know this is 108 degrees, and we know that's 90 degrees. So now let me redraw this a bit bigger. This is of equal length to that, and then you have this line connecting the two. It's asking for this angle measure, and you have this is D, that's going to be E, and this is C. So now what do you see? I see a triangle with two equal side lengths, which means it's isosceles. So angle DCE is going to be equal to angle DEC because their corresponding sides are of equal length. Which means if we find angle D, then we can find the other two angles. And it turns out we can find angle D. Because if you look at like this intersection of sides, you see that you can make a circle, right? So you have 360 degrees in this junction. And of those, I tell you that this part is equal to 108 degrees, and this is 90 degrees. You add those up, you get 198 degrees, which means this whole part is going to be of the value of 162 degrees. Okay? Which means angle D is 162 degrees. So 180 minus 162 should get us the sum of the remaining angles. That's 18. 18 is the sum of DCE and DEC. We know that both of those are equal to each other, which means if you divide it by 2, each one of those angles is 9 degrees. Which means the measure of angle DCE is equal to 9 degrees. That's answer choice C. And with that, we conclude test 3 of General Math 2019-20.